airport like any other traveler, confident, calm, first-class ticket in hand. But the moment he approached the gate, something shifted. The smiles disappeared, the tone changed, and suddenly he wasn't a respected CEO anymore. Just another man being judged by his skin. "Sir, you can't board this section," the attendant said, her voice flat but firm. For a moment, silence hung in the air, the kind that burns more than words. He could have argued, shouted, or walked away, but instead, he simply looked at her, pulled out his phone, and made a call. Within minutes, the world that had humiliated him would realize who they had just disrespected, and the regret that followed was louder than any apology could ever be. His name was David Carter, a man who had built his success brick by brick, starting from nothing but a dream and an old laptop in a cramped apartment. Today, he was the CEO of a multi-million-dollar tech company, known for his calm leadership and unshakable dignity. He had faced boardrooms filled with doubt, contracts written with hidden bias, and meetings where people spoke over him just to prove a point, but he never let it break him. That morning, he was traveling to New York to sign one of the biggest deals of his career, a moment that was supposed to define his legacy. As he adjusted his tie and glanced at his first-class ticket, he felt a quiet pride. Yet somewhere deep inside, he knew. Success doesn't always protect you from prejudice. And today, that truth was waiting for him at Gate 47. David handed over his ticket with a polite smile, expecting nothing more than a routine boarding. But the attendant's expression froze for a moment before turning into that familiar forced smile, the one that hides judgment behind professionalism. "I'm sorry, sir. There must be a mistake. This seat is reserved for first-class passengers only." The words cut sharper than they sounded. Around him, people turned to look, some pretending not to, others whispering under their breath. David calmly showed his ticket again, his name printed clearly beside the golden first-class label. Yet the attendant hesitated, her tone colder now, her eyes darting toward her supervisor. A small crowd began to form, phones quietly raised. It wasn't anger he felt, it was exhaustion. He had lived this moment too many times, in boardrooms, in banks, in quiet conversations where respect always came second to his color. The supervisor arrived, his steps brisk, his authority loud. "Sir, please step aside while we confirm," he said, not even meeting David's eyes. The humiliation spread like wildfire, the kind you can't escape even when you're right. David's heart pounded, not from fear, but from the weight of staying composed. He could feel every stare pressing against him, every judgment piercing deeper. And then his phone buzzed. One name flashed on the screen, a contact that could change everything. He looked at the staff one last time, their arrogance now almost rehearsed. Without a word, he answered the call. And what happened next would turn that quiet terminal into a storm. Phone pressed against David's ear, his voice calm but steady, the kind of calm that comes before a storm. Within seconds, the expression on his face shifted from patience to quiet authority. The people around him still whispered, still stared, unaware that their judgmental curiosity was about to meet its reckoning. "Put me through to the operations director," he said softly. The attendant frowned, still holding his ticket as if it were a crime. Then the supervisor's radio buzzed, a sudden call from the airline's headquarters, urgent, demanding. The color drained from his face as he listened. "You're speaking to Mr. Carter?" the voice on the other end asked. "Do you know who that is?" The air turned heavy. Every sound in the terminal seemed to fade. The hum of conversations, the roll of suitcases, even the announcements over the speakers. The same staff who had looked down on him now stood frozen, realizing the man they had humiliated was not just a passenger, but a major investor, one whose signature could decide their future. The manager rushed forward, stammering apologies, offering to personally escort him aboard. Cameras were still rolling, capturing every flicker of panic on their faces. David didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "You didn't have to know who I was," he said quietly, "to know how to treat me." His words cut deeper than anger ever could. The attendants looked away, faces red with shame. The gate that once felt like a wall now opened wide, but David didn't move. For a long moment, he stood still, letting the silence speak for every time respect had been denied to someone like him. Then, with one look, he turned and walked away, leaving the stunned staff behind. And as the automatic doors closed behind him, one thought echoed through the terminal. Some lessons don't come with warnings. They come with consequences. The story made headlines within hours. Clips from the terminal flooded social media. The attendants' dismissive tone, the frozen faces when the truth hit, and the calm authority of a man who didn't need to shout to be heard. The airline issued a public apology, promising new training programs and a commitment to diversity, but David knew how hollow those words could sound. He had seen this cycle before. Outrage, apology, forgetfulness. Yet something felt different this time. This wasn't just about humiliation. It was about visibility. The world had watched what it looks like when quiet prejudice meets quiet power and loses. In the days that followed, David didn't speak to the media. Instead, he wrote a single message on his company's page. Dignity is not a privilege, it's a right. The post went viral, shared by millions who had lived their own versions of that moment. Denied, doubted, dismissed. Messages poured in from across the world. Flight attendants, workers, students, all saying the same thing. Thank you for not staying silent. But inside, David carried a different kind of exhaustion. The kind that comes from fighting battles that shouldn't exist anymore. He thought about the young man who might face the same humiliation tomorrow, without a title or influence to protect him. That thought burned deeper than any anger could. Because this wasn't just his story. It was a mirror reflecting the world's unfinished lessons about equality. As the sun set behind the glass walls of his office, he looked at the skyline, tall, powerful, built on ambition, and yet still shadowed by bias. Change doesn't start in policies, he whispered to himself. It starts in how we see each other. And somewhere in that truth, his calm returned. He didn't need revenge. He had already won. Not by shutting down an airline, but by opening a conversation the world could no longer ignore.